SpaceX in less than 15 seconds.
All right, we will lay back and listen to mission control.
It's going.
Under a minute now, the FTS, the flight termination system, has been armed.
0 seconds.
Dragon, SpaceX, go for launch.
SpaceX Dragon, we're go for launch. Let's light this candle.
Do good.
T-minus 30 seconds.
Oh my gosh. This is crazy. SpaceX.
Stage 1 tanks pressing for flight.
T-minus 15 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff of the Falcon 9. NASA, good SpaceX, Godspeed, bottom dog.
Make it all the way. Make it all the way. So far, so good. So far, so good.
Okay, Mom, okay.
This is history, Hunter.
You're seeing it, viewers. SpaceX.
T-plus 30 seconds into this historic mission. Flying crew on board Dragon and Falcon 9, and look at them go.
Falcon power torture nominal.
M1D throttle down.
We're throttling down to get ready for the period of maximum dynamic pressure. We're in the throttle bucket. Reports say all systems are go.
Vehicle is supersonic.
We've exceeded Mach 1 on the Falcon 9.
M1D throttle up.
We're throttling back up to full power as we're through max Q.
Copy 1 Bravo.
And we heard that 1 Bravo call out. That's just the second abort zone that they're in. They'll continue to be on this until the first stage has done its job and they switch over to the second. At this point, they'll end up pulling about 2.3 Gs, 2.3 times the Earth's gravity, already moving at over 1,500 miles per hour.
Wow. We've heard the call out for MVAC engine chill. That's getting the MVAC engine ready to light. That'll come at about 2:44 into flight. Right now, everything continuing to look good. Next major event coming up is going to be the triple. We'll have main engine cutoff of the 9 first stage engines, stage separation, and then ignition of the second stage engine to continue to carry astronauts into orbit.
Look at that cloud.
Coming up in about 20 seconds.
M1D throttle down.
We heard we're throttling down the Merlin engines on the first stage. And we have Miko.
Eco.
Falcon stage separation confirmed.
Let's go.
MVAC ignition.
All right, we have stage separation.
Well, to our 2 astronauts joining our coverage, Peggy and Chris, I don't know much, but the black stuff sure looks like it's in space already, having just left the space coast of Florida. Peggy, your reaction to what we are witnessing?
So this is fantastic. We've gotten through the first stage. We still have a ways to go, several more minutes before they'll get all the way to orbit, but it's great. And in the meantime, the SpaceX team's going to be bringing back that stage 1 at the same time. So we'll be seeing that landing probably at the same time as these guys continue up into orbit. It's about a little over 8.5 minutes for them to get there. And I always think it's very amazing to think that you go from 0 to 17,500 miles an hour in 8.5 minutes.
And people at home heard that number correctly. It's considered the nominal speed for orbit, 17,500 miles per hour, along with our usual proviso, don't try this at home or on the interstate. Chris Hadfield, for those of us with any age on us, the number of changes is so gripping. Look at the thrust of the Saturn V rocket that took the NASA astronauts to the moon back in the day, summer of 1969. It had 7 million pounds of thrust, give or take. This had 1 million pounds of thrust, give or take. How are they able to use a rocket given that difference in thrust? And what else are the notable differences as you look at this mission compared to your last mission, for example?
Part of it, Brian, is like if you look at what the Wright brothers flew back in 1903, and then you compare that to what we know is a great design for a jet airplane today, we've learned a lot since the very first rockets that went up. We learned a huge amount with the space shuttle, and luckily the folks at NASA and SpaceX, Elon Musk, they've been able to learn from all that, to optimize it, to refine the design, to make it super efficient. And when you can make something simple and refined, then it becomes safer and then it becomes cheaper. And it's wonderful to see. I got my heart in my throat watching each one of these critical steps go by. But when that first stage is coming back to Earth now, when it's separated, that second engine cleanly lit, vehicle stably accelerating, as Peggy said, 5 miles a second. Is it going to be in orbit here now? That's a big threshold to get over. Nobody more focused than Bob and Doug in the cockpit. Boy, I'm cheering them on from here.
Chris, veteran pilots sometimes get agita when they look at flat screen cockpits. On the left-hand side, that picture, this is driving a Tesla with an attitude, really. There isn't an analog, old school mechanical dial or gauge in that cockpit. You can't help but think, what if you lose electronics to the flat screen? Does it give you any agita looking at how modest by comparison the dashboard is? Apollo had the entire facing wall to the crew of 3 was all given over to gauges, dials, and switches.
You know, the trouble, Peggy and I have both flown the shuttle, and she's a long-time pilot as well, but the trouble with 500 switches is that 500 switches that can fail. If you can make things simpler and as reliable, then you gotta really know this thing. And I've flown several airplanes that are completely fly-by-wire. Your stick is not connected to anything mechanical. You're just talking to computers. So long as it's designed well and it's trustworthy, that's what we're really after. The simpler, the better. And it's not a high traffic area. There's no trees in the way. It's actually a pretty good application for a computer-driven system. It's a well-known environment now. So I'm all for it. And Peggy and I both on the shuttle and the Russian Soyuz, but both of us would itch to have a chance to fly on board this vehicle as well. And I'm really glad they are.
And Peggy, before I give the same question to you, just to tell our viewers, nothing's wrong. On the right-hand side of your screen, the picture you're seeing is one of the marvels, one of the miracles about a truly reusable spacecraft. That is a re-entry engine firing. Those are mesh foot pads that have flared out on all 4 sides. Those are the clouds of Florida you see. And if this camera shot holds, it's going back. It's going to go back, punch through the atmosphere, punch through the cloud deck, and it's going to land itself on a barge to live and take astronauts into space another day. So while we watch that process, on the left-hand side of the screen, the astronauts are safely in space, and we indeed lost the re-entry shot for just a moment. Peggy, same question to you about analog versus digital. I know that the glass cockpit flat screens depict analog instruments because at a glance, that's what a pilot requires. Do you miss any of the old stuff?
Actually, not really. I think the more we modernize even our aircraft, the more this seems natural that our spacecraft would also be modernized like this and go with the glass cockpits. It's really, I think, important that we keep pushing the technology to improve and get us the next step up. I'm really excited to see it. I know that our folks, our NASA astronauts and our NASA crews were also involved in the development and helped to ensure that we felt everything was safe and going to be successful on this mission. And, you know, we had to do a lot of talking about touch screens and how to make those most effective. For instance, there's a little ledge where the guys put their fingers in to anchor so they can actually touch accurately on the screen. So there were little things like that that they had to come up with to make it very successful. And I'm really excited that things seem to be going so smoothly. And as you said before, landing the stage one is hugely critical to reducing the costs of spaceflight. And I'm so thrilled that SpaceX has been doing this so successfully.
By the way, to our audience watching, that shot of the barge with the rocket on it that wasn't on the barge a second ago, no big deal. That's how that is done. It appears there is a T-Rex that has made an authorized trip into space with him, at least a inflated version. The idea of astronauts taking trinkets and merch on board spacecraft. I won't ask our two astronaut guests to detail all the stuff they have brought into space over the years, but it goes back to Alan Shepard, by the way, the first guy to utter the words, "Let's light this candle," the words that started this mission. But the first stage is back on Earth, at least on a barge. One of the true wonders and marvels of modern space flight as reimagined by SpaceX, part and parcel of the empire of Elon Musk, who reimagined the automobile with Tesla, and now, assuming these guys hook up with the International Space Station, has reimagined space travel, getting Americans into space, on board an American-made spacecraft. I'll throw in my usual advertisement, especially for anyone with young children who may be interested in space flight. Go ahead and register your phone with NASA, spot the station, you put in your zip code, and you get a notification every time the International Space Station is going to overfly your area. It's a sight to behold on a clear night. It's the most notable bright spot in the sky as it passes over you, and it's fascinating to know that it's 220 miles up, give or take 17,000 miles an hour. Chris Hadfield, sum up what you're seeing and the nice trick it represents when the first stage lands back on Earth.
Yeah, Brian, you talked about kids. Both Bob and Doug have young kids. I'm sure they brought along that little T-Rex as a thing to show that now we're suddenly weightless. The engines have shut off. They're getting rid of the trunk here now, the part of the vehicle that they didn't need on the way up, that sort of the interstage there. So things are going perfectly. They are in space. It has worked. Americans are back in space on an American-made vehicle for the first time in a decade since we retired the shuttle. It's a really big moment. And this isn't the end of something. This is a door being kicked open. This is a new technology, a new capability that so many people are going to ride in the future. I'm so pleased for everybody involved, especially with the trying circumstances in the country right now, to see this level of success of what people can really do together. It's a great moment.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. We were up late with the coverage last night of some of our great gleaming American cities in flames. We woke up to smoldering embers in those same great cities. We woke up to reports that there are perhaps even foreign financed agitators in our midst as part of the population of protesters whose aims though fueled by anger and sadness, were a hell of a lot more pure than some of the political motives being alleged today. This gives us a badly needed break. This gives us the chance to think about something bigger and better than ourselves, and those pictures sum it up. On the right, again, anyone old enough to remember the grainy pictures from Apollo 11 when they achieved orbit, the grainy pictures from the surface of the moon. Now we're watching in high definition the glass cockpit, the touchscreen panel inside the flying Tesla that is the SpaceX Dragon. Tom Costello covers all things aviation for us. He is at the Kennedy Space Center. Well, Tom, they did it.
Yeah, can I just lose all objectivity and say, wow, that was cool. You know, it's been 9 years since I have stood here for a manned mission. You and I have both been down here at the Kennedy Space Center over the years, watching those marvelous shuttle liftoffs from Pad 39A, and then we've been in this 9-year pause while the Russians were giving the Americans a ride at the tune of, by the way, $86 million per seat. And so now, back on an American rocket headed for the space station. It's a great day. And what's nice about it is it's a bipartisan great day. I think the whole country rejoices in this. A couple of interesting factoids here, Brian. The mission for these two astronauts will last anywhere from 1 to 4 months. They don't know. Imagine that you have to go into space and you don't know how many pair of underwear to bring. Well, they don't know because they want to give this rocket and they want to give Dragon a real good test run. So now the rocket has completely separated from Dragon. Dragon is the spacecraft, if you will, the space ship. It's on its way to the space station, rendezvousing after a 19-hour trip sometime tomorrow. So over the course of the next 19 hours, they will incrementally increase their pitch and their altitude to get on the same orbit with the International Space Station and then go into docking mode. And that's where all of this comes together, and they will see for sure that all of this technology is performing as well as advertised. Keep in mind, this is the same vehicle, essentially, the same spaceship that has been setting up cargo for some time under the SpaceX brand name. Now it's carrying two Americans, Doug Hurley and Bob Behnken, who could not be more unassuming American heroes and really, I think, represent the best of what this country is all about, right? Experience and expertise and military commitment and service and science. And it's a great day for this country that could use a great day. By the way, the president and the vice president both here today, and the president arriving just before this liftoff. Really, I was afraid wasn't going to make it in time because he cut it kind of close. But he did arrive. He did get to see the liftoff at 3:22 Eastern Time, and every single data point hit right on the money. From max Q, which is, as you know, is when you have the maximum forces on a spaceship, to MECO, main engine cutoff, perfect, to the secondary cutoff of the engine, perfect, to separation, and then that signature SpaceX move, if we could celebrate it one more time. Nobody in the world does it like SpaceX. They land the rocket back down on Earth on a barge in the ocean. That's just absolutely phenomenal. One last bit of trivia for you, Brian, because I know you love this stuff. As they were flying up the East Coast, keep in mind, this is not a shuttle. They can't land if they have an emergency. They would have to abort, and the spaceship would then parachute back down into the ocean. So they had to have abort zones all the way up the East Coast, and they were literally numbered. 1 Alpha, 1 Bravo, for example. 2 Alpha, 2 Bravo, 2 Charlie, all the way up to Newfoundland, and then out to Shannon, Ireland. So thankfully, they didn't have to execute any of those. The thing went off perfectly, and they're on the way to the station. Brian, back to you.
Tom Costello, I have a question about atmospherics. Having been there for launches of the old school rockets, and knowing that feeling you got in your chest cavity, the ground shook. What was it like for this? This is not the caliber rocket, the diameter rocket, the thrust of the rocket that you and I grew up watching.
Yeah, it is 1.7 million pounds of thrust coming out of 9 Merlin engines for that.
Alright, you heard it, guys. 2020 SpaceX launch May 30th. Doug Hurley and Bob Behnken. It's crazy.